Tonight, we're not just telling a story, we're opening a door to a world cracking in half, a world where neighbors become strangers, where names betray you, where survival doesn't depend on strength, but on silence, on luck, and sometimes on which God your family calls at dusk. You don't know it yet, but today will echo through time, long after the trains have gone quiet, long after the border has been drawn in ink and blood, long after the soil forgets your name. This day will still whisper through the roots. You are not just a witness, you are the wound. That's your legacy line, and it starts now. Now close your eyes. Take a slow breath. The air feels unfamiliar, thicker somehow. Then, the light changes. You're not here anymore. You wake up in a room that smells like mustard oil, dust, and distant wood smoke. It's hot, but not just summer hot. It's the kind of heat that clings, full of sweat and silence, like the world is holding its breath. You sit up. Your shirt sticks to your skin, a woven mat beneath you, a cracked ceiling above. A slow, rattling fan turns above you. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's your own breath in your ears. There's no electricity today. There wasn't any yesterday either. Someone in the street is shouting, but not in anger. Not yet. You're 17. Your name is yours. But it doesn't feel safe anymore, because names here carry maps. They mark you as Hindu or Muslim or Sikh. They decide whether your house will burn tonight, whether you'll ride the train tomorrow or be dragged off it. Today is August 10th, 1947. There are rumors about independence, about freedom, about a new country being born in haste. But no one talks about the labor pains. You step outside. The alley is quiet, unusually quiet, like even the birds are confused. A goat tugs on a frayed rope near the steps. Someone's charpoy leans against a wall like it gave up trying to sleep. And across the lane, a boy your age watches you. You know him. You've played cricket with him. But his mother called him inside last week, and now he doesn't smile anymore. He just stares. His family is Muslim. Yours is Hindu. That never mattered before, but now it's the only thing that does. Your father is already at the tea shop. Your mother is packing rice into old cloth sacks. You ask her why. She doesn't answer. Not really. Just in case, she says. And then, don't go far today. But what's far now? A street over? The next district? The other side of the new border. A border no one's seen, but everyone feels. Around noon, you hear the first gunshot. Not near, not far, just enough to stop your heart for a beat. Someone bolts down the street. Another person shouts for water. Then quiet again. Like the world is pretending nothing happened. You do too. But something inside you has shifted. Some thread has snapped. You go back inside. The radio crackles. Mounting tensions in Punjab. You already know. You've seen the mobs form. Heard whispers about trains arriving full of corpses, returning empty. You've seen the temples and mosques marked with red paint and fear. And still, the day drags on, because history doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It creeps in like heat, slow, suffocating, until you realize you can't breathe. You lie down again at dusk. The ceiling turns gold, then ash. Outside, someone is crying. You don't know if it's a woman or a child, or what they've lost. Maybe they were told to leave. Maybe they refused. Maybe it's too late. You press your palm to your chest. Your heartbeat is the only thing that hasn't changed. Yet, you wonder, what will tomorrow bring? A train ticket? A torch? A knife? Will you leave? Will you survive? Or will your story be one of the thousands that go untold, buried beneath the pages of Partition? You are not just a witness. You are the wound. You remember that now. You feel it. And so begins your journey. Not in triumph, not in clarity, but in confusion, dust, and a name that no longer fits the street it was born in. Let the day begin. Before your eyes fully open, something burns your nose, a strange, sour sting, like rotting onions left too long in the sun. You turn your face away from it. The pillow smells of dust, turmeric, and dried sweat, not your own. The cotton is scratchy. The room is hotter than yesterday. And outside, the world is already louder than it should be. You slept in your neighbor's house last night because your own was set on fire the day before. You didn't cry, not then. Your mother told you to be brave, but in the quiet moments between the screams and the smoke, your body shook like it remembered a truth your mind wasn't ready to accept, that you are no longer safe in your own home, that maybe you never were. You sit up slowly. Your back aches. Your legs feel heavy. Sleep didn't help. It never does anymore. You reach for your slippers and find only one. You stare at it for a long time, and you wonder, should you even bother looking for the other? There is no breakfast, only a small metal cup of water and a half-rotted banana, already turning black at the edges. You hesitate, then eat anyway. Because hunger is no longer a visitor. It's a resident. Your mother says she'll find more food later. You nod, but you don't ask how. You've stopped asking that. The neighborhood is half empty now. Some left for Lahore. Others headed toward Delhi. Some were forced out. Some didn't get a chance. The sweet vendor's shop is gone. The tailor's door is broken in. A crow picks at something in the dirt that looks too red to be just meat. You feel the nausea rise, but you hold it back. This is normal now. A little girl clutches her doll by the limb. It's missing an eye. She stares at you without blinking. You wonder if she remembers her old street, if she knows where her father is, if she'll ever be a child again. You're not sure you will. You walk toward the well. It's the only one still standing, but it smells strange today, like rust and something thicker. The old woman beside you murmurs that the British are leaving, that Gandhi has failed everyone, that Nehru and Jinnah should have burned instead of the city. You don't say anything, because every sentence is now a side. Every word is a weapon. Surprise historical fact. Insert. You overheard a man last night say that over 75,000 women have already been abducted or assaulted on both sides of the border. Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, none of it mattered. They were stolen like cattle, used like warnings. He said it casually, like he was talking about livestock. Like they weren't someone's sisters. You remember that number. You wish you didn't. Down the alley, a man is painting over a signboard. It used to say Iqbal General Store. Now it says Ramesh and Sons. You knew Iqbal, uncle. He gave you jaggery when you were a boy. He had a crooked tooth and always smelled like cloves. Now, his store belongs to someone else, and no one speaks his name. You wonder if he made it to Lahore, if he even got past the checkpoint, or if he became one of the names carved into the benches at the refugee camp, scratched in with a nail or a belt buckle, just so someone, anyone, would remember. The sun climbs higher, and so does the tension. You hear shouting near the mosque. Someone's accusing someone else of hiding weapons. A group forms. You count at least 12 men, sticks in their hands. Then, silence, like the air itself is afraid to move. You turn away. You don't need to see what happens next. You already know. Back at the house, your uncle sharpens a knife in the courtyard. It's not for cutting vegetables. Your aunt holds a tiny bundle of jewelry wrapped in her sari. She whispers that gold might save them if the soldiers come, or by mercy, or food, or passage, or nothing. Your little brother plays with a matchbox. You snatch it from him. He cries. You don't return it. You don't say why. Because the house is dry. The floors, the rafters, the walls, one spark, and you'll all vanish like smoke. You learned that yesterday. Evening comes without ceremony. The muezzin calls from the mosque, hoarse and slow. Somewhere else temple bells ring. Further still, someone sings a Gurbani hymn. Voices overlap like a broken harmony. Once, this would have been comforting. Now, it sounds like a warning. You try to sleep, but there's movement outside. Heavy boots, whispers, a metallic click. You freeze. Someone mutters a name, and it's your father's. You don't know if they're searching, accusing, or remembering, but you stay still. You hold your breath, and your heartbeat becomes the loudest thing in the room. And in that moment, you understand something terrible, that you're not living anymore. You're surviving. That your country hasn't been born yet, but your childhood has already died. That tomorrow might never come. You were never just a witness. You are the wound. And tonight, it stings. Sleep if you can. There's more pain on the wind. Your first task today is simple. Stay alive. Long enough to see the sun dip behind the fields. Long enough to hear your mother call your name again. Long enough to make it to tomorrow. But even simple things are dangerous now. You wake to silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. Too still. Like the world has already ended and forgotten to tell you. The cot beneath you creaks. You shift carefully. Your brother is curled beside you, thin arms wrapped around your waist, like you're the last piece of home he has left. You don't want to move, but you have to. The water jug is empty. The food tin is dry. And your father hasn't come back. He went out last night to look for rice. He said he'd return by midnight. He didn't. Your mother hasn't spoken since sunrise. You step outside. The heat greets you like an old enemy. It presses against your face, heavy and humid, a blanket soaked in fire. The narrow alley is scattered with broken sandals, torn shawls, and an overturned cart of lentils that no one dared to pick up. The ground is sticky with the dark outline of old blood. Dried now, but not old enough. A dog licks the rim of an empty can. Its ribs show. So do yours. You follow the same path as yesterday. Down the main road, past the half-burnt sweet shop, through the abandoned Gurdwara, where even the pigeons have stopped nesting. Your feet ache, raw from walking barefoot the past 2 days. You've stopped feeling pain in your soles. Now it hurts somewhere deeper. A kind of quiet, slow-burning despair that turns you into a ghost in your own body. You find a small queue outside an old haveli. A man is handing out stale roti and salted water to children only. You try to stand straighter, to look younger, but the woman beside you sees through it. "Let the little ones go first," she says. You nod, ashamed. As you step aside, you notice her sari is stained with milk, but she holds no baby. You walk on. You check your pockets. 2 coins, a safety pin, and a photo of your uncle from Lahore, folded 4 times until the face is creased and faded. The coins can't buy much, not anymore. Prices have climbed like fire up dry grass. A kilo of rice is worth a day's labor. A sack of wheat? Only if you have gold or blood to trade. You have neither. You stop at the railway platform. A freight train just left. The tracks still tremble. A boy your age stares down the rails like he's trying to will another train into existence. He carries a small bag tied with rope, and nothing else. You ask where he's headed. Anywhere, he replies. His voice is dry, like sand. Then he turns and vanishes behind the stalls. You wonder if he'll make it to anywhere. You wonder if he'll make it to nightfall. You pass by a field where two men are digging with bare hands. A woman stands nearby, weeping silently. You don't ask who died. You don't ask if it was violence or disease or thirst. Because now, death is just background noise. A thing that happens to everyone eventually, just sooner for some. You finally return home with a bruised mango and a half-filled can of cloudy water. Your mother doesn't look at you when you enter. She stares at the wall, a place where once hung your father's prayer beads. They're gone now. Your brother claps when he sees the mango. It's the first time he's smiled in 2 days. You cut it slowly, carefully, into 4 slivers. You eat the smallest one. Your stomach still growls, but your mother doesn't touch her piece. She sets it aside and lies down. Her back faces you. You don't ask if she's saving it for your father or if she knows something you don't. Internal thought. What if he's not coming back? You swallow the thought, but it clings to your ribs like dust. That night, you light a small diya in the corner, not for prayer. You've stopped doing that, but for light, for silence, for pretending. Outside, you hear something that sounds like drums, but it's not music. It's men marching and shouting and steel clanging against steel. You blow out the lamp. You hold your brother's hand. You press your body into the wall as if the bricks might hide you. You try to stay strong, but somewhere deep in your bones, something begins to splinter. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe it's the knowledge that every day this country pulls itself apart and takes a little piece of you with it. Maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe the gods made a mistake. You close your eyes. You do not sleep. You are never just a witness. You are the wound. And today the wound has no bandage, only silence. And the slow ticking of a country being born too fast. There's no room for weakness in this world, because even gods are watching. That's what your mother said last night, as she tied her dupatta over her head and lit the lamp before the broken shrine. She whispered mantras through cracked lips in swollen grief, each syllable trembling like the wick's flame. You didn't join her, but you watched. And for the first time in days, she looked like someone who remembered who she was. Not just a refugee in waiting, but a daughter of something older, deeper, holy. Now it's morning, and the prayers begin again. You walk through the half-burnt gully, past the collapsed fruit stall, past the silence where the mosque once stood. You remember the chants that used to rise from it at dusk, soft and sad and haunting. You didn't understand them, but you miss them. Now there is only ash. You reach the temple, what's left of it. The gate is gone. One side of the roof has caved in. The idol inside is scorched, the paint peeling like old skin. But still, someone has lit incense. A garland of marigolds hangs from a cracked statue. A child balances a diya on a broken stone. There is smoke, sandalwood, whispers. You kneel, not because you know what to say, but because everyone else is. You mimic the ritual, hands together, eyes down. Even if you don't believe anymore, you kneel. You hear a voice beside you, low and steady. You are not just a servant. You are the offering you turn. It's the old priest. He survived the fire. His robes are singed. His eyes are hollow. But he still shows up every morning to chant, to sweep the soot, to pretend the gods still walk here. You ask him if it matters, if prayer still means anything when men with swords write scripture in blood. He looks at you and then beyond you, as if seeing through time itself. When a tree is burning, he says, its roots do not pray to survive. They pray to remember you don't know what that means, but it stays with you, like a splinter of light in the dark. You return home by noon. Your mother rubs oil into her scalp. She does this every Thursday, even now. She hums an old song as she does it, as if the melody can keep bullets away. You stare at her, confused. How can she still perform rituals when half the neighborhood has vanished? She looks up as if reading your thoughts. We wash our hair, we light our lamps, we press the rice flat because we are still alive, she says. And if we forget to act like it, then they've already won. You remember stories your grandmother told you of saints who walked barefoot across kingdoms, spreading hymns like seeds, of women who fasted for the safety of their homes, of men who left gold behind to build temples from stone and song. It sounded like myth. Now it sounds like loss. You sit in the corner. You open a small prayer book. The pages are wrinkled from heat, from time, from panic. The words blur, not from tears, but from something worse, doubt. Outside, a man is shouting. He's reciting verses, loudly, angrily. You recognize the words. They're from the Gita, but they sound like a threat today, not a lesson. You wonder how something sacred can feel so sharp. Thematic anchor, repeat line. You are not just a servant. You are the offering. It echoes in your head. You hear it in the way your mother folds her hands, in the way the old man sharpens his blade while whispering the Hanuman Chalisa. You hear it in the quiet too, in the parts of the day where prayer is just breath and survival is the ritual. Evening falls like a curtain soaked in smoke. You light a lamp, not for the gods, for the memory of them. Your little brother folds his hands and asks if Krishna will protect him. You pause. Then you lie. You say yes. Because sometimes belief is more important than truth. And across the city, in a different home, a different voice says the same prayer to a different God for the same reason. A Muslim girl lights a candle before fleeing her house in Rawalpindi. A Sikh father marks his door with soot and recites Japji Sahib with trembling hands. Everyone is praying. Everyone is pretending someone is listening because belief is the only thing they haven't stolen yet. Night arrives with fire in its lungs. You lie down next to your brother. He falls asleep quickly. Children are still good at escaping. You stare at the ceiling and whisper the line again, not to God, but to yourself. You are not just a servant. You are the offering, and in that moment, you understand something ancient, that maybe rituals aren't about power or even hope. Maybe they're about dignity, about remembering you were human before the world forgot it. Sleep now. Tomorrow may not begin with a prayer, but tonight, you still have one. Narration begins. The platform is chaos, a sea of bodies, not dead yet, but close, shouting porters, barefoot mothers, children clinging to their fathers' shirts like drowning sailors to driftwood. You press your foot onto the rusted steel of the train car, and history shifts beneath you. Inside, It's darker than it should be. A suffocating mass of limbs and breath and fear. You're not seated. You're folded, bent between elbows and knees, holding a stranger's child on your lap because the mother fainted before boarding. The child doesn't speak. He just watches you with huge, unblinking eyes. The doors slam shut. The train moves, and you feel the world unravel. There are no names on this train, only castaways, torn from the spine of a nation now cracking down its center. You don't know where it will stop. No one does. The name painted on the front was scraped off days ago, replaced by dust, blood, and silence. You try to focus on something, anything. There's a man humming quietly, a soft tune in Punjabi. It might be a lullaby or a dirge. The train shudders and picks up speed, and now the landscape begins to flash by. Burned fields, smoldering villages, skeletal trees with smoke climbing their limbs. Once, you see a woman running barefoot across a riverbank, her sari soaked in blood. Another time, a group of boys with rifles wave as you pass. You don't know if they're saluting or aiming. You close your eyes. And then the smell hits, not all at once. First it's a hint, metallic, strange. Then it thickens, gets under your nails, coats the roof of your mouth. Someone whispers. Second car is gone. You don't understand. Gone? You ask, but no one answers. Then the screaming starts, muffled at first, as if underwater, then closer, louder, a pounding on the wall of your car. A woman's voice, shrill and fractured, calling a name over and over. You hold the child tighter. He begins to cry. The man with the lullaby stops humming. There's a silence that isn't peace. It's terror holding its breath. And then, nothing. No announcement, no conductor, just the train, screaming forward, as if it, too, is trying to outrun whatever just happened behind you. You don't sleep. No one does. Night falls, but there are no stars, only flames on the horizon. You see the outline of a station pass in the dark, its sign swinging loose, bullet holes through the wood. And then, just when your body starts to surrender to numbness, the train begins to slow. The brakes screech like an animal in pain. You hear voices outside, military maybe, or mobs. Everyone inside stiffens. A man reaches into his coat for a curved blade. Another clutches a bundle wrapped in torn cloth. It might be money, might be ashes. You think, this is it. But nothing happens. The train lurches forward again. You don't cheer. You don't even breathe. Because now you understand what kind of train this is. It's not a ride to freedom. It's a test. One some will not survive. Hours later, maybe a lifetime, it stops again. This time for good. You stumble off, legs barely working. The child is still in your arms. The mother never woke up. You bury her name in your chest and whisper a promise. You've arrived in another country, but it doesn't feel like home. The signs are in the same script, the sky the same gray. But something is missing. You left it behind, in the track smeared red, in the silence of the car that never answered, in the people who didn't make it. You survived, but only on paper. Inside, you are still somewhere on that train. You've crossed the border, but it doesn't feel like crossing into safety. It feels like stepping into fog. No one is cheering. There's no parade, no flags waiting to embrace you. Just the dry crack of boots on dust and a row of tents that stretch beyond the horizon like scars stitched hastily on a wounded land. You are not welcome. You are not hated. You are simply another number. They don't ask how you got here. They ask if you were checked for lice. They don't ask who you lost. They ask if you brought any belongings worth documenting. The man at the desk doesn't look up when he says, "Name?" You hesitate, because for the first time, you forget it. That name, spoken by your mother every morning as she combed your hair, is now a ghost. It echoes faintly, but it's slippery, because you haven't heard it spoken with love since the day she vanished into the crowd. You say it anyway, quietly. He writes it down, misspells it, then shoves a clipboard to the side like you're the fifth dozen today. You're not a survivor here. You're a file, a future vote, a ration card. They call this place a resettlement camp, but what it really is a graveyard for stories. Every person here is a broken sentence. Your tent sags like the body of an old horse, canvas stitched with patches, holes the size of your childhood. Inside, one wool blanket, a tin bowl, a stranger breathing beside you in the dark. The latrines are open pits that swarm with flies. Food comes once a day, if it comes at all. Rotten rice, yellowed water. You swallow it even as your stomach lurches. Children cry for milk. Elders cry for home. And then, there are the silent ones. They don't talk. They just sit near the fire, staring into the embers, whispering names to themselves, as if saying them enough times will make those names rise from the ashes and step through the tent flap smiling. You try not to listen at night, but the camp has no walls. It has no secrets, only grief, raw and exposed like an open wound. You try to speak to the locals, but your tongue betrays you. Your dialect is a flag you didn't mean to carry. It tells them everything, that you're from over there, that you don't belong here, that your pain isn't their pain. They look at you the way people look at wet dogs, pitiful but unwanted. You are a foreigner in your own country, a refugee without crossing oceans, an exile by the accident of being born on the wrong side of a red line drawn by strangers with pens. Weeks pass, or is it months? Time becomes muddy. Days blend into each other, and slowly, the version of you that existed before, the child with favorite places, the mother who sang, the boy who dreamed of school, the man who wanted to own land, fades. That person is buried under every bowl of rationed rice, under every step you take to the registration booth, under every time you lie and say, "We're lucky. At least we made it." That's the lie they teach you to say, lucky. Even when your brother's bones lie somewhere under a tree near the border. Lucky. Even when your house is now occupied by a stranger who lights his lantern in your courtyard. Lucky. Even when your prayers are said in whispers, because someone might not like how you pronounce God's name. You begin to build a wall inside yourself, brick by silent brick. Hope becomes a dangerous thing. You saw what hope did to your neighbor back in the train. He believed his son was still alive. He believed too long. He screamed when they showed him the shirt. You don't make that mistake. You learn to live in the present, to ignore the dreams that visit you at night. Because if you allow yourself to feel again, you might remember, and remembering might kill you. You've been resettled. At least that's what the government clerk said, without looking up. Just handed you a ration slip with a stamp still damp from the ink pad. You stared at it. Block 4, Lane 9, Refugee Colony. No house number, no name. Just a promise of shelter scribbled like an afterthought. You walk for hours, through unfamiliar streets, through smells that aren't your own, dust, rotting grain, unfamiliar spices. Your legs feel hollow. Your stomach has stopped complaining. Hunger gave up days ago. And then, finally, it's there. Your home, not a home, really. Just a concrete husk with flaking paint and a cracked roof. A place someone else left in a hurry. A lock broken. A window shattered inward. Like the house itself gasped before it was abandoned. Inside, a child's drawing on the wall still stuck with dry glue. A woman's scarf caught in a nail above the door. Half a mirror, reflecting only one eye. Their life is still here, but they're not. You step carefully, as if afraid to disturb the ghosts, as if walking across someone else's wound, because you are. You don't unpack for days. The small tin box you carried across borders stays shut. Inside it, your father's shaving blade, your mother's bangles, a tiny picture of your sister when she still smiled. At night, you sleep on the floor. No bed, no cot, just flattened gunny sacks and the smell of old smoke in the walls. You hear other families, packed into houses like cattle into stalls, crying babies, whispered prayers, a man coughing as if he's trying to breathe out grief. You try to join life again. There's a relief camp that gives out rice twice a week. You stand in line, longer than the line you crossed at the border. You're no longer a name. You're a category. Refugee, displaced, victim. People around you trade stories like old coins. Mine was killed on the train. We hid in the river for 3 days. They burned our house, but spared the cows. Everyone has a horror. No one has a solution. You try to work. But who hires a stranger with calloused hands and no certificate to prove who they were? You try to sell thread in the bazaar, but no one wants your colors. They say they look too Muslim, or too Hindu, or too foreign. You try to learn the dialect here. The words feel strange in your mouth, like borrowed clothes. And then one day a neighbor tells you, you should be grateful you're alive. Others weren't so lucky. You nod, but in your chest, something sharp twists, because you aren't sure what's worse, dying that day on the train or surviving to live a life that doesn't feel like yours. And then, one morning, you see it, posted on a crumbling wall, a newspaper headline, fluttering in the wind like it's mocking you. Peace restored across border. You freeze. The letters blur. You blink once, twice. You feel laughter rising in your throat. Not joy, but the brittle laughter of someone who's seen too much and can no longer cry. Peace? Where? In the streets where children paint new flags over old bloodstains? In the temples and mosques where silence now prays louder than the faithful? In this refugee colony where people die with names that no longer belong to them? Number. This peace is made of paper, fragile, official, and soaked in denial. You return to your cement room. The kettle whistles on the stove, shrill and thin. You pour yourself tea that tastes of rust and dust. You sit by the window, watch the sky and wonder what country you're under. India, Pakistan, or something in between. A ghost country shaped by loss and longing. You speak your name aloud, quietly, not for anyone else, just to remember who you were, who you still are, beneath the new label. No one answers. But for a moment, the silence feels softer. And then, you close your eyes, and you wait for tomorrow. You have a ration card now. It flutters in your pocket like a false flag, paper proof that you exist. The lines outside the refugee center are shorter these days, not because there are fewer people, but because those who could wait have either died or moved on. You are not dead, but you are not quite alive either. Your new home is made of cracked plaster and borrowed roofs. A narrow alley off a city road you can't pronounce. You live with 8 others, strangers at first, now silent companions in grief. There is no space for your memories here. No one asks about your old house. No one wants to hear what your mother looked like. They want you to forget, to sweep the blood-soaked years into the same corner where they pile the garbage, to move on, as if history is just a page you can turn. But you can't. Every time you see a sari with red borders, you remember your sister's wedding, the one that never happened. Every time someone calls out a name in your native dialect, your heart flinches. You look, hoping, dreading, but it's never them. They're gone. And your hope is a cruel thing that refuses to die. You try to work. The factory floor stinks of sweat and rust. Your hands grow calluses, your back stiffens. Your voice becomes quieter with every shift. You eat in silence. You walk home in silence. You speak only to the wall you face while sleeping. Some nights, your roommate coughs so hard, you think he'll die. You don't get up. You just watch the shadows move across the cracked ceiling and wonder if souls get tired of returning, because yours has wandered so long, it no longer remembers the way home. One day, you get your first letter. A distant cousin, someone you hardly knew, writes from across the border. He says your uncle was killed. He says your old house now belongs to a butcher. He says the mango tree your grandfather planted was chopped down to make room for a checkpoint. You read the letter again and again until the paper softens in your fingers. That tree meant more to you than your new address ever will. You try to smile for others. It's what survivors do. At tea stalls, you laugh when others laugh. When they curse the government, you nod in agreement. When they talk of nationhood, pride, the glory of independence, you sip quietly and swallow the lump in your throat. Because what are you proud of? That you survived a slaughter. That your country was born soaked in its children's blood. That the freedom everyone sings of came too late for the people you loved. You want to shout, "This isn't my country. This is a ghost town wearing the mask of a republic." But you say nothing, because even anger costs energy, and you've spent yours trying to be invisible. Time passes. It always does. You learn to live like a guest in your own skin. The city changes you. Your clothes become simpler. You eat what's cheap, not what you crave. You forget festivals. You forget how your name was once said with love. You become a number in a census, a statistic on a refugee report, a body that wakes, works, and sleeps. You don't dream. Dreams require a future. Then one day a child calls you uncle. You blink. You look down. A girl with wide eyes offers you a small marigold. She says her mother says you fixed the water pipe. She says thank you. And for a second, the world tilts, because no one's thanked you in years. No one's called you anything but your last name since the train. You take the flower. You don't say anything, but your fingers tremble like old leaves. And in that moment, something shifts. Not forgiveness, not closure, but a tiny defiant thread of being. You remember your own childhood, your mother's voice, the smell of rain on your village soil, and you realize you are the last vessel of that memory. If you die, it dies. And maybe that's why you must live, not for revenge, not for rebuilding, but to remember, to carry the names of those lost like prayer beads, to ensure their stories don't fade into the smoke of history's pyres. You start writing, at night, by candlelight, on the back of ration slips and factory receipts. You scribble names, faces, moments. You write of your sister's laughter, of your father's hands, of the man who gave you water on the train before being dragged off. It doesn't fix anything, but it gives shape to your grief. Because what is a country but memory? And what is survival, if not witness? Time moves on, but you do not. Not really. You age, yes. Your body grows heavier. Your back bends. Your voice thickens with the years. But the air inside your lungs never feels fully yours. It still tastes like smoke. You try to build a life, a little shop, a roadside stall, a marriage arranged by other survivors. You even name your first son after the village you left behind, as if his laughter might rebuild the homes you lost. But some nights, when everything is quiet, you hear the train whistle in your dreams, and the ground beneath you shakes. You wake and sweat, grabbing for someone who isn't there. Your wife asks you what's wrong. You lie. You always lie. Nothing. Just a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was history, knocking again. You can never leave it behind. Because partition didn't end with the borders. It sank its roots deep into your skin. You walk past a field and remember a massacre. You hear a word in Punjabi, and it makes your heart skip. You see someone from the other religion, and for a second, your blood forgets who you've become. You try to forgive, but the images remain. The man with the sickle, the girl with the red ribbon in her hair, who disappeared behind smoke. Your father's last words, which you were too far away to hear. The world outside wants you to heal. It moves on, erects statues, writes school textbooks, names highways after martyrs. But you live in between nations, between religions, between memory and silence. You don't tell your children what really happened, not because you want to hide the truth, but because you don't know how to carry it without breaking. How do you explain that a line on a map killed your brother? How do you explain that faith, the very thing meant to uplift, was used as a weapon to justify everything? You try to speak one day. At the dinner table, the words get stuck in your throat. Your daughter laughs. "Abba, why do you look so serious all of a sudden?" You smile and say nothing, because you know she'll never understand what you left behind, what you still carry every day beneath your ribs. Time moves on, and now you're old. You sit on a Sharpei in the sun. The streets are busier, the city louder. The new country stands tall, flags waving, slogans shouted. But your mind is still standing at the border, still watching smoke rise from across the fields, still listening for names that no one calls anymore. You tell yourself it's over, but history doesn't end. It only waits, in corners, in mirrors, in the names we forget to speak aloud. And every time you think you've buried it, it returns, not as a scream, but as a whisper. You sit in a wooden chair beneath the old neem tree, where the dust glows gold, and the wind carries the scent of turmeric, dry leaves, and time. Your hands, once calloused from pulling train luggage, from hammering a new roof onto a stranger's house, now tremble gently in your lap. Your eyes are still sharp, but they see two worlds at once. The present, with its concrete, its slogans, its cable wires, and the past, flickering behind your eyelids like the flick of a match. They say the partition ended in August 1947. But for you, it never really ended, because some things never end. They echo. You left your home at 16 with a cracked steel pot, one shoe, and the photograph of your sister folded in the lining of your blouse. You don't remember the village name anymore, but you remember the smell of the wheat fields, the way your father coughed into a handkerchief and pretended it was nothing, the way your mother tied your hair one last time and kissed your forehead before vanishing into the crowd at the station. You saw her again only in dreams, always behind a locked window, always reaching for you. They called it independence. But all you remember is the train ride through a silence so deep it had weight, windows blackened, bodies without names, the stench of blood and diesel clinging to your skin for weeks. You remember the child who would not stop crying until she did. You remember the lullaby her mother hummed even after. You arrived on the other side with a country but no home, a flag but no roof, a name but no past. You built a life anyway. You learned to stitch, to sell, to smile politely. You cooked lentils for neighbors who would never know what you had seen. You married, had children, named them after rivers that no longer flowed in your direction. You taught your daughter to read in 2 scripts, and your son to keep quiet at checkpoints. You planted trees where graves might have been, hung new gods on your wall, wove silence into your sorry like thread. But inside, you never left. Even now, decades later, you remember the way people died. Not just that they died, but how they looked at you, how they begged, how they stayed quiet, how they reached upward as if the sky could take them. You remember the men with swords shouting slogans neither side truly understood, the women who walked into rivers, the smoke rising from every side, turning the sky black. You didn't survive the partition. You adapted to it, endured it, made room for it in your chest like a second set of lungs, but the pain never left. Some nights, your children ask about it, in whispers. Ma, was it really that bad? You smile, you lie, you say, it was a long time ago. But when the lights are off and the fan spins like a slow blade, you see their faces again, the ones you lost, the ones you left behind, the ones you had to step over to keep moving. You wake up clutching your pillow like a body. Now you're old, too old to walk the stairs, too tired to argue about history, too worn to keep pretending it didn't happen. Your grandchildren play cricket in the courtyard. They speak of Instagram Reels, YouTube, NASA. They don't know the name of your village. They don't even know you changed it. They call you Nani. They love you, but they do not know you. Not really. They don't know the river where your brother drowned, or the field where you buried a friend with your bare hands, or the night you bit your own tongue to keep from screaming. They know the India that rose, not the India that bled. You die in the late afternoon, not with drama, not with crowds, just a quiet breath, a soft sigh, and then stillness. Your children light the fire. The priest chants your name. They place tulsi leaves near your mouth. And yet, when the smoke rises from your pyre, something else rises too. Something older, something unspoken, because you were never just a person. You were a border, a wound, a silence made flesh. You were the refugee who never arrived. You were partition. And now, even in death, you remain unfinished. You survived, that's what they say. You crossed the line, didn't you? The one they drew on old maps with English pens. You're standing now in a place they say is your own, a nation that echoes your religion, your tongue. The flag flutters above your head. the right flag, according to the people around you. But something inside you still doesn't know what that means. They told you the worst was over, but no one tells you how long it takes for the heart to stop shaking. Your body has made the journey, but your soul stayed behind, buried under the neem tree in your old courtyard, pressed into the kitchen walls where your mother shaped dough with sun-dried hands, crushed under the weight of your father's last words, never heard above the screaming train. You walk with food in your bag now, a government-issued tin bowl hanging from your belt. You wear new clothes, stitched by another refugee who once owned a silk shop in Lahore. You are among the saved, that's what they call you. But you don't feel saved. You feel suspended between countries, between identities, between versions of yourself. The refugee camp sprawls like a broken city. 1,000 tents stitched from tarps and scraps. Bamboo poles swaying in dry wind. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, rust, kerosene, and wet jute sacks. Every direction you look, more strangers. Men with eyes like yours. Women with the same accent as your aunt's. Children chasing invisible dogs, playing games they don't remember the rules for. And yet, it feels nothing like home. A man walks by carrying a bucket of water on his head, muttering to himself in Punjabi. You pause, startled by the cadence. It reminds you of the songs your grandmother used to hum while grinding lentils. But she's not here now. She never made it past the border. You sip your tea from a rusted tin cup. The heat doesn't warm you. You hear someone laughing too loudly behind the mess line, and the sound cuts deep. You wonder how anyone can laugh again after what they saw. At night, your body lays down, but your thoughts stay standing. The cot creaks. Mosquitoes hum by your ear like spirits. You wrap your shawl tighter, even though it's warm, and then you hear them. Not real sounds, ghost sounds. The creak of your old front door, the thud of your uncle's cane on stone floors, the clatter of a brass plate tumbling from your mother's hands, the whistle of the pressure cooker, the lullabies of another country, another life. You try to block it out. You press your face into your knees and hum to yourself, but even your voice sounds strange now. It doesn't belong to this place, this tent, this camp. The next day you queue for papers. A government clerk with ink-stained fingers stamps your name on a new identity card. It says citizen now. It says male, age 26. It says nationality, Pakistani. You hold it like it's proof you're real, but inside you feel like a copy, a duplicate of someone you used to be. A second draft of yourself. And you don't know which version you're supposed to keep. The men around you start talking about work. Some plan to go to Karachi, some to Multan. A man named Imran says he heard a textile mill needs laborers. Another says the military is recruiting. You nod along. You want to belong. You want to live again. But your mind drifts back to your father's bookshop. The way he used to stack the Urdu poetry volumes near the window to catch the sunlight. The way your brother read Ghalib out loud, like prayer. Now those books are ash, and you're here, clutching a refugee ID in a line full of survivors. Weeks pass, then months. Your tent becomes your house. You mark the days on the canvas wall with chalk lines. You trade your mother's gold earring for a blanket. You help build a water pump. You teach a girl next door how to write her name. You begin, slowly, painfully, to live. But the ache doesn't leave. It changes shape, yes, but never disappears. You laugh now. You even sing once, during a wedding in the camp. But when the music fades, when the food is gone, When night returns, you still sit quietly and speak to no one, because only you know what you left behind. Only you remember the smell of mango blossoms in your childhood village. Only you remember the way the call to prayer echoed through the mango trees. Only you remember burying your best friend in a shallow ditch during the riots. Only you remember who you used to be before the line split you in two. And then one day someone calls you Mohajir, a migrant, a guest, a stranger in your own country. You want to shout? I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for your borders, your blood, your new god of nationalism. But you don't. You never find your mother's body. The camp at Atari drowns in mud and misery. Each night, the sick moan like ghosts. Each morning, someone vanishes. Graves blurred together, carved by trembling hands with spoons. You stare at the rows of shallow pits and wonder, is she beneath your feet or lost somewhere else forever? You remember her cry the night the train was delayed. The night rumors turned into screams. They said the train from Lahore arrived full of corpses. They said the river ran red. You begged her not to go, but she went. To find your brother, to find water, to find hope. She never came back. You survive, but not whole. You eat bitter rice from aluminum tins, sleep on torn sacks, carry a refugee number like a name. Your tongue still tastes of Lahore. Your hands still smell of soot. You grow, work in mills, save, endure. But pieces of you vanish. The mango tree, your brother, even your old name. Years later, you tell your children not to hate. They ask what happened in 1947. You open your mouth, and no words come. How do you explain trains that arrived full and left empty? Neighbors who became enemies overnight? Or the voice of your mother still calling you from the smoke? In old age, you return to Wagah. The soil, the wind, the faces, all the same, divided only by a line. You press your hand against the iron gate, cold, final, unforgiving. Before you die, you write a letter, not to your children, not to God, but to the self you left behind, to the boy with wide eyes, the mother with silver bangles, the home with marigolds. You write, I hope you made it. I hope you are still laughing somewhere. And if not, may the river carry your story, so it will not be forgotten. The grave is unmarked. The partition lives on in silences, and even the lucky ones don't survive it fully.